That is my goal. Now, my bonus goal is ow, that just hit me straight in the teeth. That did not feel good. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Nitty Natty. Welcome to episode 282 of the Love in Stitches podcast. Today I'm coming to you from Riding Mountain National Park in Manitoba, and it is like a gorgeous day outside. It's cloudy, it's a little bit chilly, and I have this great background behind me. Our campsite is perfect today because we've got nobody to this side, nobody to this side, nobody across from us. So hopefully I'm not disturbing anyone. I do have a road behind me, but I'm hoping I'm blocking it out a little bit just with my back being to it. So hopefully it's not too bad. But as always, when I'm filming outside, it is just, we'll see what happens. There could be a bunch of motorcycles that go by or a dog that barks, and we'll just roll with it. So I have a lot to show you today in the podcast. I was able to put everything out on the table here because I've got a nice little picnic table. I also have a finished object, but first I'd like to say thank you to today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it so easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from physical, digital products, content, or time. I'll be sharing more about how I use Squarespace later on in the episode. For now, let's get into the projects. Okay, of course, I want to start with my finished object. So this is the Florence Tee by Courtney A. Clark, aka I Love Tinderbox. I'm going to stand up in a second and show it to you, but I wanted to talk about the yarn that I used. So this is 29 Bridges Go-To Sock. It's a 75-25 superwash merino and nylon, and the colorway is linen. Now, when I was shopping for this at Maryland Sheep and Wool, I actually got it at Yarn Centric, I was nervous about not having enough yarn. I know crochet uses more yarn than knitting, so I think my size said I would need around definitely more than 2 skeins, but maybe like 2.5 to 3 skeins. So I thought, why don't I just get a 4th skein so that I am extra safe? Well, I ended up not needing that 4th skein at all, despite making this a little bit longer and kind of going in between sizes. And I still have all of this left of my 3rd skein. So all in all, 2.5 skeins was perfect. Now, the size that I made, so I actually ended up making a size small, which is not my true size. I am a size medium, at least in this pattern. But what happened is I could not get gauge. So I talked about that, and when I first started out this project, when I swatched, I just could not get the stitch gauge, and I did not want to go any smaller. Actually, I didn't have any smaller hooks. I used a B hook, and I didn't have anything smaller. So what I did was a little bit of math to kind of figure out if I make the next size down, how big will my sweater be? And if I made the next size down, I was going to end up getting about the same measurements as the size that I needed. So I went from a medium down to a small with a larger gauge. And so basically I created a medium, but I really made the size small. So, and this is how it came out. So mine ended up being about 40 inches across, which is perfect for me. My bust is around 35 to 36 inches. So I have some good ease here, which is nice. I think I added a teensy bit of length. So let me get up now and I can show you, where did this come from? I have project bags all kind of combined today because I was planning to take all the stuff to a further walk away. Instead, the van is just right there. So I didn't need to do that, but let's see. I actually have space to stand up. Now, I'm not wearing jeans, which is what I'd probably wear with this. So my leggings are pretty high. I'm also not wearing a top that I would actually wear with this. So I don't have like a camisole or anything that I can wear. So I just have on my little hiking workout tank top. I would not wear that with this. So anyway, keep that all in mind. I am holding on to the last end until I actually try it on with jeans and just make sure I like the length. But I think I'm really happy with how it came out. I really like the fit. Like, it's got a little bit of ease, but not too much. I was worried it was going to be a little bit big. So this is my first, I feel like, really successful crochet garment. So Thank you, Courtney. Sorry, that was very jerky. Thank you, Courtney, because I'm so happy with how this came out. But I was really worried about it being too big. I think because I'm used to knitting garments, and when I knit garments, I have a really small circumference needle, like a 24-inch, which is much smaller than me. So the garment looks very small on the needles. And so I kind of have a visual for like, okay, my body, when I'm making a sweater, looks about this big around on knitting needles. And then when I'm crocheting, that is not the case. It's not scrunched up at all. Everything is fully full-sized, and it just looked different, right? It just didn't look the same. So I was worried it was going to be too big for a while. I kept trying it on, and this is all blocked and everything. So I think it came out just perfect. It's got so many fun little details here. These really opened up nicely when I blocked. I didn't do anything special. I just washed it. I actually forgot to bring any soak or any like bars of wool wash with me. So I ended up just using a teeny bit of dish soap because that's all that I had. I'd already filled up the sink, like cleaned and filled up the sink in our van when I realized that. And so I was like, you know what? Better than just water. So that's what I washed it with. I'll probably do a better like wash at some other point, but it opened everything up really, really nicely. It didn't grow like too terribly much, maybe just a little bit. But yeah, I'm really happy with it. I don't know exactly how much length I added here. Courtney's is pretty cropped, so probably about like that. So I need to do some measuring and seeing like how much I actually added, but I didn't want mine to be super short. So that's why I added a little bit. I don't think it ended up being that many more rows though, because my gauge was so much bigger. So it's a V-neck, and oh dear, that didn't sound good. It's a V-neck, and it's a little low for me to wear just on its own without something underneath it. So I need to look for some kind of a tank top. Like I said, this is not what I would wear underneath it. This is just all that I have. So if you can imagine not having all the straps there that are not looking right, I think this is gonna be a really cute, like summer, maybe into fall sort of wear. So yeah. Oh, I forgot to say how long it took me. I always like to look back on that when I finish a project. So I started this on June 12th. I can't remember if that's when I swatched or if that's when I actually started. Sometimes I update my project pages when I actually start versus swatching. It doesn't matter. And I finished it on July 16th. So just about 4.5 weeks to get this done, which I'm really proud of. I think I took about a week off of it anyway last week, so it worked up really fast. So I would definitely recommend this pattern if you are looking for something to like try out crochet garments, because I'm so happy with how this came out. This week we entered our 7th province of Manitoba, and so I was immediately on the lookout for yarns to add to my Canada blanket, and I ended up finding Fireweed Fiber Co. They're out of Winnipeg, and we spent a few days in Winnipeg, so I was like, all right, I have to get this. The color that I got is called Grown Up Living Barbie Doll. You can only guess what color that is, and it's a beautiful pink. So this project that I'm doing, I'm calling it my Canada blanket. Actually, I'm just calling it like our Canada blankets because I'm making a blanket for me, but I'm also using the leftovers to make a blanket for Toaster. So I'm just gonna show them together from now on because it doesn't change that much. Obviously the colors change. This one turned out so pretty. So I'm using the Battenberg blanket, but I'm just adding rounds. I do 9 rounds of the Battenberg blanket. And then for the other square, I'm trying to use up as much of a skein as possible. So this uses like 30 something grams and these use like 40 grams. This is from the Yorkshire Crochet Along blanket. Look how pretty that one came out. So this pattern is the Falling Leaves pattern in the Yorkshire blanket by Mima Makes. So in this Ravelry project page, which I did spend some time getting caught up this week, I added all my Ontario squares, and then I added these squares and took the photos and added the, like how many grams they use, how much, like, what am I trying to say? Which squares I'm doing, which patterns I'm doing, which yarns I'm doing. Anyway, I just caught it all up because I finally had some time to do that. And on that page, I also have both the Yorkshire blanket and the Battenberg blanket linked since I'm using both of them just changing them slightly. So with this square, or with these 2 squares, I now have 25 squares for my blanket, and we have 3 provinces left to go. I don't think I'm getting any more yarn here in Manitoba. Maybe it's a possibility. I would love that. But while we were in Winnipeg, this was the only Manitoba hand-dyed yarn that kind of fit into my blanket. There were some others, but they were either natural fiber or like no nylon content whatsoever, which I like to have for my blanket, or they were solid colors, which I also love, but not for my blanket. So I just didn't find anything else that would fit for my blanket. So maybe I will find something when we go to our next town, because we're not done being in Manitoba just yet. So I have 25 squares now. I would have 26, except for one yarn I had just enough to do 1 square. So I'm trying to figure out what that means for me. I did some math, but I did this yesterday. So let me see if I can interpret. So basically, if I go to, okay, 25 squares. Let's start with that. 25 squares, I can make a 5 square by 5 square blanket, right? 5 times 5 is 25. But I'm not going to stop at 25 because I have 3 more provinces to go to. So I'm going to have at least 3 more colors, which means at least 6 more squares. I have backed myself into a corner a little bit here with this odd number, so I will have to figure that out. Basically, I'm going to have to not use 1 square. So it might end up being the odd one out, or it might not. I don't really know yet. I'll have to figure that out. So I thought, what if I go up 1 row or column, and I have 5 by 6. So that would be 30 squares, which would mean I could have 3 more colors or 5 more squares, or I could go up to a 6 by 6, 36 squares, which would be 11 more squares or 6 more colors. So essentially what I'm trying to figure out is how many more yarns am I getting in the next few provinces? I don't really know yet. I think like 3 is probably unrealistic, because that would mean 1 in Saskatchewan, 1 in Alberta, 1 in BC, and I just don't see that being realistic with how many yarn stores we'll end up going to. So I'm thinking 6 is more practical. It could be 2, 2, and 2. It could be 3, 1, 1, 2. I don't know. I just don't know yet. It could end up being more than that, but basically I'm trying to think in increments so that I don't end up with a random amount of yarns or a random amount of squares that won't all fit into the blanket. I'm trying to think, you know, now that we're getting closer to the end, how is this going to work in my final blanket? I did realize with this square, I actually started back through. There's 12 different patterns in the Yorkshire blanket, and this is my first repeat. It's my 13th, or is that true? No, this is my 2nd repeat. I repeated 1 when I did my Ontario squares. I thought I had made it through all 12 patterns, but I actually haven't yet. When I was going back through, I was like, wait a second. I thought I had done 14 colors and I've only done 13, which means I skipped a square. So I went back through, and I realized I had forgotten the waterfall pattern. So the next square that next color I get, I'm hoping to do in the waterfall pattern. It has like beautiful baubles on it. So hopefully I'll have another yarn by next week and I can share that with you. But anyway, just doing like my project maintenance on things, I realized that I had totally forgotten it. And then, yeah, last thing here, I added the leftovers to Toaster's blanket. So this is based off of Tony Lipsy's linen stitch temperature blanket, and I'm just making it as big as it can possibly get. So you can see the same color added in here. I think at this point it's going around like 1.5 times. So not quite 2 times. And it will probably stay the same for at least a few more colors, and then I might get to the point where it's only going around 1 time, and I've just decided that's totally fine. It's now big enough that it fits over Toaster, so any bigger is just a bonus, really. He's already used it. Like when I finish it for the night, I just kind of lay it on top of him if we're already, you know, have the bed down and all comfy and everything, and he already loves it. So it's definitely a success. So I'm feeling really good. I got these done a few days ago, and because I feel like the blanket is kind of my main priority, because as soon as I get the yarns, I want to go ahead and work up the squares, work it into Toaster's blanket so that it's done. And getting that done kind of early in the week and not having any more yarns allowed me to put some work into other projects, this one and the next one I have to show you. As you are watching this, it is Sock Week 2025, which is a make-along I do every single year, and it's so much fun. I'm so excited we're finally here. You cast on Sunday or later, and then finish by the following Sunday. So this Thursday, if you're watching it this Thursday, we are in the midst of it. So I am therefore in the midst of finishing up all of my socks that I possibly can. Did I put everything back in here? Yes, I did. Okay, thank goodness. So the first sock that I have worked on this week is my Polka Dot Creek sock. So I'm doing these with an afterthought heel, and I finally thought, you know what? I should add my banana split marker from Angel's Cottage into here, duh. So I added that to it, and I did a whole bunch of just plain knitting, and then I added a toe just yesterday. I still need to go back and add a heel, but I'm glad I didn't do that yet because, well, one, I was trying to figure out how much yarn to use. So these cakes, or these skeins that Polka Dot Creek sells are in 50-gram increments, or maybe like 70, I think is the larger one, but the cake that I had was 50 grams. So 50 grams, and then it came with the 20-gram mini. And I didn't remember that at all, of course. So when I finally had some time to sit down and I was going through tidying up all of my projects, I finally weighed this and I saw that I had 30 grams left still. And then I weighed my sock and it was only like 20 grams or something like that. And so at that point, I think I was here or maybe here. So I added a few more stripes, and then I thought, you know what, I better check and see how long the leg is going to be when I put this foot in. So I took stitch markers, and I've taken them out now because I need to go back and put them in. But I took stitch markers and I put them every 20 rows. I need about 64 rows for my foot, and that ended about here. And then I looked at how long my leg was going to be, and I thought, I'm done. I think that that's long enough. I feel like any longer and I'm going to have to start adding, or I would have needed to add more stitches here for it to go up my calf. So I decided I'm done. I made it to the end of the 4-stripe repeat. So the speckles, red, brown, yellow, I made sure to end in the same way. So that way, when I start my next sock, I will have the lighter red with the speckles to go. So finished that yesterday, and that meant that today, for the start of Sock Week, today is Sunday, by the way, I got to start my second sock. So my goal for Sock Week is to make this sock and then add heels to both of them. That way they can be completely done. I should have a finished pair by the end of Sock Week. And of course, since I'm me, I have a second goal in mind if I get that done. So I have a goal for every day. Today's goal is to finish the cuff. I've already done that. We had a lot of driving today. The next 4 days, so 2 days for the leg, 2 days for the foot, I am aiming to work 7 stripes. I have 28 total stripes from the cuff to the toe. So divided that by 4 is 7. So 7 stripes a day, that's quite a lot of knitting. So I don't know, tomorrow might be a little bit trickier, although we might do some hiking, so that might work. So 7 stripes would be this much knitting, 2.5 inches maybe. So doable on some days, but maybe not doable every day. I will do my absolute best. And then that leaves me a day for the toe and then a day for each heel. So that's the goal. Now, the other reason, going all the way back to when I started this tangent, the other reason I'm really glad I hadn't put the heel in yet, aside from figuring out the yarn, we took a class yesterday from Denise, who is Earth Tones Girl. She is the person that did the No Fear sock knitting on YouTube, and she's got a book coming out. But we had a class, the Love and Stitches membership, had a shadow wrap heel class with Denise. And I have never tried the shadow wrap heel. I know it's very similar to the Fish Lips Kiss heel. Now I know how to do it because I was in the class, but I didn't have a sock ready for that yet. And what I learned is you can actually insert the shadow wrap heel as an afterthought heel. So I think as long as I have the time and mental energy to manage it when I get to the heel, I think that's what I'm gonna try on the self-striping socks. So basically you just pick up your stitches just the same. I'm probably gonna knit a round or two and then make the shadow wrap heel and then graft it. So that's what I'm thinking I'm gonna try, which is fun because now I can put something new into my challenge for Sock Week. So that is my goal. Now my bonus goal is ow, that just hit me straight in the teeth. That did not feel good. My bonus goal, I have another pair of Sock Week socks. These are actually the last pair or the last colorway from this year that I need socks out of. I already finished a pair, and then with my Toaster Loves Ice Cream sock set, Allie sent me a pair that was already made. So 2 are done, 1 is halfway done. I have 1 more color to work through. It'd be really nice if I could get all the Sock Week colorways completed in Sock Week, but we'll see. That's a bonus. But anyway, these socks. So these are from Summer Lee's shorty sock set, and it's called All the Frills. So it's just a short sock with a ribbing and a ruffle at the top, heel flap and gusset. And then I was already able to put in quite a little bit here on the foot. So these are gonna be done pretty fast. I'll probably put the contrast color on the toe as well. This yarn is from Super Glow, and it is called Unicorn Sparkle, and it is so much fun. There's an ice cream called Unicorn Sparkle that has all these bright, fun colors in it. So that's the plan for Sock Week this year. If you are seeing this just now for the first time, seeing me mention Sock Week, there is still time to join us. You may not be able to complete a whole sock in the last few days, but that's really, honestly, even though that's the challenge, it's not the point. It's all about community and just fun. So if you want to come and join us, pick up a sock wherever you are more than welcome to do that. We're having fun on Discord. We're doing a movie night on Friday night, Friday the 25th. So come on and join us. All that information is on nittynatty.com. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's podcast. Something that I love so much about Squarespace is how easy it is to use, not even just getting started with it, but for me as a user every single day. Just last night, I was going into my Sock Week page to kind of edit it a little bit. I wanted to add that I was having a live YouTube coming up and make it really noticeable. So some of the features that I use is this scrolling text, which I really like to use whenever I have something that I want to grab attention, and then also the announcement bar at the top. All of these features are so easy to modify. I can even tell you when I've used other platforms, I don't even want to change my page because if I change one thing, it's like a Word document. It all gets messed up. But with Squarespace, it's so easy because it's all modular. I can just hit undo if I mess something up. I don't know, it's just so easy to use. Squarespace also has a range of different services. So if you're looking to sell something like digital products or physical items like yarn and stitch markers, they have a place for that. Or if you're looking to sell memberships or courses, they have something for that too. And Squarespace makes it easier than ever to accept payments. Customers now have even more ways to pay with popular options like Klarna, ACH Direct Debit, Apple Pay, Afterpay, and ClearPay. If you're a small business owner, it's super easy to get your site started with Squarespace. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/nittynatty and use my code nittynatty to get 10% off your first website or domain. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. From Catherine. How do I, meaning me, not purchase more yarn visiting all the yarn shops? When you fall in love with a yarn, how do you know how much to purchase? I've shortened this question just a little bit so I could write it down here. So how do I personally not get all the yarn when I'm going to yarn shops? I feel like I do get quite a bit of yarn when I'm going to lots of different yarn shops. I usually end up with something from most of the yarn shops that we visit. I've been way more disciplined here in Canada than I was in the US. And I think that being not as disciplined in the US is what has helped me to be more disciplined here in Canada. So I think experience is gonna be the answer mostly. Is just like experience and mood and what I've done in the past informing what I should do in the future and my stash goals basically. So I feel like I want to go way back for me, because I don't think it's wrong. I want to say this right up front. I don't think it's wrong to collect yarn and add it to your stash, or to buy yarn without intention at all. Like, I think it's fun. It's really fun. And at the same time, you are supporting a small business most of the time. If you're buying hand-dyed yarn, you're buying from a small business, or maybe you're buying it from a yarn store. So it's a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing in any way. So I don't want to like make this seem like this is the right way to do things. This is just how I have felt. So basically, my yarn collecting ebbs and flows, as I think probably most people's does. So I'll go through a period of time where I buy lots of yarn, and then I'll be like, I need to get rid of all of it. I need to use it all up. I'm using stash. And then I'll be like, I'll buy more yarn. And then again, I'll be like, I need to use all my yarn. I need to use all my stash. And it kind of just ebbs and flows. So right now I'm in a period where I feel like I want to buy yarn only that I'm going to immediately use. I am not trying to add to stash, but I am buying yarn. I'm just using it pretty quickly. And that's because I've just come out of a period where I bought so much yarn when we were traveling in the US. And then right before that, I destashed and used up like my entire stash. I got my stash all the way down to one skein. So ebbs and flows, really, honestly. So right now, my intentions when I'm going to yarn stores are to buy yarn to go in my Canada blanket. So I have pretty clear parameters around that. I want hand-dyed yarn that's dyed in the province that I'm in. So I'm here in Manitoba. I'm only looking for yarn that's dyed in Manitoba, unless the yarn store has their own hand-dyed yarn line, regardless of where they actually dye it. So that's what I'm looking for. That rules out a lot of options for me right away, which is really great. And then the other thing is I'm looking for pinks and purples. So if the store doesn't have any pinks and purples in the hand-dyed yarn, then I'm maybe not gonna get it. It just kind of depends. As you will see in just a moment, I did get some other yarn this week that does not fit that, and I'll explain that when I get there. But for the most part, that is keeping me pretty limited. The other limitation for me right now is living in a van. I do not have a lot of space, and I kind of made this promise to myself when we started out on this trip that I was not gonna have more yarn that could fit in the storage spaces that I have. So having yarn that's like sitting out in a bag on the floor was driving me crazy. It was making me feel guilty every single day. Imagine, and maybe some of you don't have to imagine, maybe this is your reality, because it has been for me before. You have to move your yarn stash every time you want to go to bed at night, or you have to step over it every time you want to walk through your house. That's how it was feeling for me. So I'm in a place of buying only what I'm going to use immediately. Not saying that that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying that's what I'm doing at this moment, and what I will probably continue to do for the next little while, because all the while I'm thinking about the yarn stash that I do have at home now, and I just want to use it up. I just want to use it up and use that yarn. That's just where I'm at. That's the mood that I'm in. So that's how I avoid buying too much yarn, or too much yarn at the shops. Now, when you fall in love with a yarn, how do you know how much to purchase? This is such a good question. So I think in our knitting and crochet journeys, a lot of us can fall into where we just buy one skein because it's really pretty and it's really fun. And then we end up with so many single skeins that we don't know what to do with, because we don't want to make only one skein projects, right? You don't want to make only socks or only hats, etc. So how do you know how much to buy if you're not going to do a single skein purchase? I think this comes from just having an idea for what you want to make. I really, even before now, I really liked to buy yarn with a plan. Like, I might find a yarn and go, oh, I really like it, and then find a plan while I'm in the store. But I want to have at least an idea before I leave or before I purchase that yarn for what it will become, so that I have enough of it. So now that I've done that enough, I do have like a semi sense for how much yarn I will need for something. If I want to make a very plain basic t-shirt and I'm using fingering weight, I have a pretty good idea of how many skeins that I'll need for that. Anything else I probably would have to look up, to be perfectly honest. I don't have like that in my head, but I feel like a lot of people who are sweater makers do have a pretty good sense. Like, oh, if I'm going to make a long sleeve pullover and I have this weight, I need 7 skeins or 8 skeins or what have you. Like, they just kind of have a good sense. So they may get something and then find a project that fits it later. I like to do it the other way around, where I maybe I find the yarn, I pick the project, and then I get the yarn, even if that's going to change later, like the pattern will change later. So I hope that helps. So it's kind of a roundabout way to give a tip, but I think just if you like a yarn, don't feel guilty about getting it, and try to make the smartest purchase you can. So if you like the yarn and you think, wow, I'm going to use this for a sweater, look up sweaters and figure out how many skeins about you might need. You don't have to make the pattern decision that day, but at least you'll have enough yarn to get you started. All right, number 3, this is from Emily. I just crocheted my first basic granny square and I want to try the Battenberg. Can you explain the difference between British and American terms and which I should learn? Yes, okay, so in crochet, there are UK crochet terms and US crochet terms, or British and American, but I've typically seen them labeled as UK and US. So let's talk about them. I actually had to look this up to make sure I was right before I answered this question. So I'm going to go off of memory from what I looked up yesterday. If I'm wrong, please correct me. So basically the US and the UK have different terms for the same thing. So in the US, I would say single crochet, and that would mean a specific stitch. But if I was doing the same stitch in the UK, it would be called a double crochet. So same stitches, just different terminology. If I was doing a double crochet in the US, oh yes, there's still a double crochet. It just doesn't mean the same thing. In the UK, it would be a treble crochet. Very confusing, honestly. Patterns will tell you what terms they are using. And I think for you, you should use whatever you first learned. So if you grew up in the UK, I guess it's a possibility you probably learned the UK terms. If you grew up in the US or in Canada or somewhere else, you've probably learned the US terms. I don't even really honestly know if they are truly belonging to the US or not, or belonging to the UK or not, and why these got divided at some point, but that's what they're called at this moment, and that's what we know. As far as which ones to learn, if you have a choice and you haven't settled on one yet, I honestly would go with the US terms. I feel like I've seen them more often in patterns. It seems like even when patterns like the Battenberg come with UK terms, they are typically translated into both. When I've seen patterns that have US terms, coming from either a US or a Canadian creator or designer, I have not seen them translated to UK terms. So this is just probably my bias being in North America, that's all that I've seen. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think if you're going to learn one, for me personally, it would be the US terms, because that's what I already know and that's what I've seen the most of. I also, in my brain, it just makes more sense that a single crochet is a single crochet. It goes single, double, triple, and to go from a slip stitch to a double crochet doesn't make sense to me. So if somebody in the UK learned this way growing up, I'm sure there's a reasonable way that it makes sense. I was trying to think about, maybe it's how many times the loop goes, or the yarn goes around your needle, right? So a single crochet US or a double crochet UK, before you start your stitch, no, there's only one stitch on your needle. See, that doesn't even make sense to me. Single makes more sense. And then double, you have 2 loops on your needle before you start in the US, but that would be a treble in the UK. So I don't know. I guess for me, I can't make my brain make sense of something that I didn't start out learning, and that's just why I didn't start out learning it that way. So I think for you, go with whatever works best for you. And if you can choose one, maybe go with the US terms. That's just my thought. Everyone, please, you're welcome to contribute and answer any of these questions as well. All right, last question today is from Kathy. How do you pack your hand knit garments for travel, both in the van and when you're packing in a suitcase? Okay, this question actually baffled me a little bit because I don't do anything special when I'm packing my hand knit garments, and I'm wondering if I'm supposed to do something special. Am I supposed to do anything for them? I guess the only thing I can really think of is when I'm packing hand knit garments in my suitcase, I try to make them be in the center so that they don't get caught in a zipper, because I'm just worried they're going to get caught in a zipper. I usually pack all of my clothes into packing cubes, which also have a zipper. So the packing cube, as I'm packing it, I will have, it's usually too big for just one layer of things. So there's usually like little things all around it. So I'll probably put like my sweaters and stuff in the center, put like socks and underwear around it, be very careful when I'm zipping it up, and then it's safe from the zipper, both on the packing cube and on the suitcase. But I fold my hand knitted garments the same way I fold my t-shirts. I lay them flat, I tuck in the sides and the sleeves, I fold it in half again, and I fold it in half again, or I'll like tri-fold it. So they're basically like folded / rolled. And that's how I do everything, whether I am packing the suitcase, packing the van, putting it away in drawers when I had a dresser. That's how I put everything away. So I don't know if I'm supposed to do anything special with them. I don't know. Tell me, please tell me. In the van, I do have baskets. So again, they're just folded that way, where they're kind of like tri-folded, like KonMari, folded, and then they just kind of like sit in there with my other t-shirts and like my tank tops and everything. So nothing special, at least for me. All right, that's all of our questions for today. Again, if you have any questions for me, please put them in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer them in the next episode. I'm skipping the Yarny news section again because it's all just sock week and I already talked about sock week. So I don't think we need to have that segment when I don't have anything to share. So we're just going straight to life. We have had a really great week. As always, we're doing so many fun things. I'm so grateful for what we're getting to do right now, traveling across Canada. We spent most of the week in Ontario and we are now in Manitoba. We're traveling across the Trans-Canada Highway, which has been super, super fun. While we were in, I'm trying to think now, actually. I think most of these Yarny stops were actually in Manitoba. Am I getting things mixed up? When did we get here? You know what? Actually, I think we've been here for a few days. I might have just said that all entirely wrong. Maybe we've spent most of the last week in Manitoba. I don't know. Time just travels so fast. Literally, I was like, oh, I need to record a podcast today. It's been a week since the last podcast. How has it been a week already? It feels like it was yesterday. So you know what? We're just going to skip ahead to what we've done in Manitoba. We do have more vlogs coming soon. So our next vlog will be the Ontario vlog. Lots of fun stuff in there, lots of yarn stores in that one. And then I believe following after that will be Manitoba the very next week. So that's kind of what we spent most of this week doing, is filming some of that. And we got to go to 2 farms, we got to go to several yarn stores. So I'm just gonna share briefly what we did. We also did a lot of other fun, like Winnipeg things that will be in the vlog, trying different foods, going to different spaces that are familiar. And then right now we're in a national park. We went to a provincial park. So there's gonna be a lot of fun things in the Manitoba vlog. I'm really excited about that one. Not to jump ahead past Ontario, sorry Ontario, but the Manitoba one's gonna be so cool. Okay, so how about we start with this? We started out, first Yarny stop of the week was Long Way Homestead, and you may have heard of them before. Anna is incredible. She's an author, she's a farmer. They have Shetland sheep, and they were so cute. I actually got to hold a lamb, which I've never done before, so that was really exciting. And I kind of broke my little stash rule because I really wanted to get some fiber from her sheep after seeing the sheep and seeing the mill. She's also a natural dyer, which is just so cool. Like, she's the coolest person. It was so fun to be there. I can't wait for you to see all of that. So I did end up getting, she only had 2 skeins left of her yarn. So this is Shetland sheep sport weight 2-ply from her animals. Oh, there's a bee. Get away from me. I actually don't know if this one's a natural or a dyed one. It does seem like it could be a natural color, but I don't know what I'm going to do with this. See, I don't always follow my own rules, but I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet, but I really wanted to have something from Long Way Homestead. I also wanted to learn more about the wool industry because we learned a lot from Anna while we were there, just how incredible like sheep and farming in general can be for the environment when done in a specific way. She's very passionate about it and has written a lot about the Canadian wool industry. They are also making wool pellets, which then can be used in gardens. So like kind of go back into the land, and they're testing it out in Winnipeg, which is a major city, for their gardens, which is super cool. So coming from sheep that are local, going back into like the local environment, I don't know, it was really cool. A lot of it went over my head because it's a very new topic for me, but I thought I would get her current book, The True Cost of Wool, and get started on reading that and just starting to understand kind of what's happening in, how amazing wool can be. I already know it's amazing because I love to work with it, but then just even diving further into that. So that was the first stop. You'll hear a lot from Anna. She's so much more eloquent than me, so much more educated than I am. So you'll be able to hear a lot of that coming up in that vlog really soon. We stopped at 2 yarn stores in Winnipeg. The first one is Pearl and Hank. They do a lot of leather work stuff. That's where I got the fiber shoot. Why am I forgetting the name? Hold on, fireweed. Yes, fireweed fiber yarn for my blanket. I also ended up coming back the next day. They had like a sit and stitch time and hanging out. It was during the day, so it was a little bit of a smaller group, but it was really fun. I got to meet the owner. It was great. And then we went to Woolsey Wool, and I forgot to bring out what I got there. This shop is really lovely. Lots and lots of different yarns. They did also have the fireweed yarn, but I was like, I already got some fireweed yarn. I want to get something different. And I found a stitch marker locally made in Winnipeg of a curling stone. So I am really excited for that stitch marker. I think I put it up in my shelf, which is why I didn't see it to pull it out today, but maybe I can put a picture in here so you can see what that looks like. And then the last place we stopped at is Springfield Alpacas. We got to meet Marianne. They have 18 alpacas, and they are a newer farm, so they've been there for about 2 years. They just had their first shearing last spring and got some yarn made. And they also make, this is so cool, and she actually gifted this to us, which was so sweet. They get these made, these super nice, thick woolen socks. This is one pair of socks. You see how thick this is? And it's got the elasticity in it. These are going to be so well used and loved when it gets cold here. I am so excited. So it's 75% alpaca, 23% nylon, and 2% spandex. Kent and I each were gifted a pair, which I'm so happy for. And then Marianne is multi-talented. So not only do they have the alpacas, they get their yarn made, they get the socks made. They also had like thinner socks as well, but she also sews and she makes these project bags. I want to make sure I tell you the name right. Her Etsy shop is called Sew Into Knitting, and she makes these great project bags. This is a really fun fabric, but it's a drawstring that has kind of a long handle, so you can actually like put it on your arm or, easily pick it up, which I think is so great. And it's got 2 handles. I've never seen that style before. Quilted. Anyway, she also gifted this to me, which was so sweet. So love that. So, I don't always get yarn, but sometimes I do end up with more things from the different places that we go to. So yeah, I got some interesting things this week. I got a book, I got a stitch marker, I got a bag, I got socks. So yeah, still having fun. Getting lots of stuff. So yeah, you'll get to see the sheep farm, the alpaca farm, some yarn stores, so many fun things coming up in our vlogs. All right, that's everything for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.